And joining us now on the line from the nation's capital is Diane Finley. She is the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration and the Conservative MP for Huldum and Norfolk. Minister, we're grateful to have you on the air tonight. How are you?
I'm just fine, thanks, Steve. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thanks. Glad to hear it. Let's just start by why the need to change the immigration bill in this country at all.
Well, you know, there are some major problems that we inherited from the previous government, and immigration is certainly one of them, even by the Liberals' own admission. It used to take 3 to 6 months to get an application to come here processed. It now takes 3 to 6 years. It used to be 50,000 people in the lineup who had made application. Now there are over 800,000. And if we don't do something soon, it will soon take 10 years to get your application process to come to this country. Our economy can't stand that. We have labor shortages, both professional and unskilled, right across the country. We need to do something so that we don't continue to lose much needed talent to other countries who can get the processing done in 3 to 6 months.
Well, of course, the debate is over whether you guys have the right formula for resolving this issue. And I want to read you something that Carol Gore had in the Toronto Star a few days ago. Perhaps you saw it. She wrote, "The preliminary consensus is that the proposed changes to the Immigration Act are much more significant than Canadians have been told. Under the new legislation, the immigration minister would have the authority to limit the number of immigration applications that Canada accepts, deny admission to applicants already approved by immigration officers, block the entry of would-be immigrants by category or otherwise. What this means," immigration lawyer Lauren Waldman said, "is that Canada would no longer be an immigrant-welcoming country. It would be a rich Western power that shops for high-value immigrants. Federal officials would no longer use objective standards to determine whether an individual qualifies for a visa. The minister would be able to set and change the rules at will." Lots to comment on there, so go ahead.
Well, for starters, it's absolute nonsense, and it's a lot of fear-mongering. What we're trying to do is bring some common sense and good management to a structure that is, quite frankly, a mess. The current Immigration Act forces us by law to process every application that we receive from beginning through every stage till the end. And that applies whether the person has made multiple applications. We have to process each and every one of them. Or if the applicant has passed away, we still have to go through the process. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of talent, certainly a waste of taxpayers' money. Meanwhile, we do have critical shortages across the country where we may choose that we want to expedite those applications. Let's say for medical professionals. Under the current law, we might have medical professionals at position number 700,000 in the line. Well, we can't process their application until we've done the 699,000 plus ahead of them.
And you want the right to push them up the list, as it were.
We want to have the chance to meet Canada's needs for our overall needs, whether they're for skilled workers, unskilled workers, or family reunification. We don't have that flexibility, and we don't have the tools to manage the backlog in a sensible, efficient, and effective manner. When we talk about limiting people who come here, there's already a cap on that. In terms of how many people we can process, the existing law, by creating the backlog, has effectively discouraged people from even applying.
Okay, I think people understand the example you just gave. We have a medical shortage in this country, and if you want the flexibility to move a doctor further up the list, I think people get that. I think what obviously the critics are saying right now is that these new changes would give the minister, in this case you, added power. And whenever politicians give unto themselves added power, it tends to raise red flags. For example, how do we know that you will use these new powers in a way that's to the benefit of the country, as opposed to, for example, the benefit of Conservative Party supporters?
Well, we certainly would never be able to screen people out based on country of origin or ethnicity or religion. That's totally contrary to the Charter. Canada has the Charter, and everything that any minister would do would have to be compliant with that. Secondly, we're not talking about individual applications here. We're talking about categories of people, and that's very clear in the legislation. So that if we want to bring in, as the example I gave was medical professionals, we would have the flexibility to do that. If it were family reunification, now we've already been working on that. In fact, we've reduced the processing times there by 20 to 40% because that's been a priority. But we need the flexibility and the tools to added to the extra resources that were in Budget 2008 to make this work. It's not enough just to put more people at it, throw more money at it. That could just put us back into deficit. We've got to do things better and smarter, and this is the only way we can do it, is by changing the law.
I understand that the power in your hands, of course, would be very benignly and in the public interest entirely, but let's say the next Minister of Citizenship and Immigration isn't quite up to your standards of public spiritedness. Does it concern you at all that added power is being given to the minister rather than, say, the bureaucracy or the ministry?
Well, let's keep in mind that the ministry processes some 4 million decisions a year. The minister does not get involved with every single one. It's physically impossible. What the bill allows for is for the minister to write instructions to the immigration officers right around the world. Broad terms could describe broad categories. They would be the ones that would be exercising the judgments. But there would be transparency as well, because any instructions would be gazetted, they would be available for public viewing, and there would also be an annual report to Parliament. So there would be no hidden agenda. There couldn't be. As well, the minister gets advice, whether the minister wants it or not, from the provinces, from the departments, from other departments, from cabinet. And this would be a major policy decision if any instructions were written. The ministers are not allowed to do that on a whim under any responsible government.
Well, you mentioned advice from the provinces, and you did get some advice from one premier of one province, namely the premier of this province just the other day, who said he wouldn't want to shut out folks who don't have a skill. I wouldn't be here, said Dalton McGuinty. We were part of the exodus from Ireland at the time of famine. We had no skills, we couldn't speak English, we were dirt poor, but we were looking for opportunity, and we brought with us a solid work ethic. If somebody comes to Canada and says, I've got a solid work ethic, I'm honest, I'll do the very best I can for myself and my family, that's a pretty brave thing to leave your country, says the Premier, and come to another country where there's a different culture, different language, different set of laws. I wouldn't want to discount the value we associate just with folks who come here and want to work hard and find opportunity. Does the Premier have a point?
Well, those are exactly the kind of people we are trying to encourage to come here. We're not just after doctors and engineers. We're after welders, and we're after people to wait tables, and people to wash dishes, and people to dig ditches. We need all of these people at various points across the country, and we're trying to encourage more people to come here. But if we don't reduce the wait times, nobody's going to want to come here for any job. They simply don't want to have to wait 10 years to come to a job. They don't want to wait 10 years to get reunited with their families, and business can't afford to wait 10 years to get the workers they need. This way, by reducing the backlog and improving our processing times, we'll be able to attract just the kind of people that the Premier's talking about, but also the whole other spectrum of talented people and dedicated people that our labor market needs. Because quite frankly, all the numbers show that by 2012, just 4 short years from now, all of our net growth in the labor market is going to have to come from immigration.
Let me ask you to address another criticism that we've heard, and that is that the focus appears to be more resolutely on immigration for economic reasons, as opposed to, say, family unification reasons or the other cultural/societal benefits that come from other kinds of immigrants. Is that an accurate criticism in your view?
I think it's inaccurate. It's only accurate insofar as skilled workers do make up the biggest percentage of the backlog. There's no question about that. And so we have to get at those people. We need their talents. We have to get them here, and we have to get them here faster. But family reunification is definitely a priority. That's why we've improved the processing times 20 to 40% already. I mean, this government is for families. I'm the minister that brought in universal child care benefit. I saw the foreign adoption bill through. When people fill out their tax returns, they'll see that we've brought in several other incentives for families. So that's obviously a priority for our government. We've taken the action, we've proven it. But skilled workers are essential to our economic success as a country.
Okay, we've talked some policy, let's talk some politics, and you were there sitting right behind the Prime Minister this afternoon when he engaged with Stéphane Dion, the leader of the opposition on this issue. We'll play a little snippet of tape from this afternoon's sitting in the House of Commons, then come back and chat. Michael, roll tape, please.
It was a shock when, without any warning, the government introduced last-minute sweeping changes in our immigration system in a budget implementation bill. Instead of presenting independent legislation, why are they trying to sneak these changes through the back door?
Honourable, the Minister of Finance included in the recent budget some funds to effect some very important immigration reforms. These are necessary The previous government left us with queues of hundreds of thousands of people who wait for years to get into this country to fill necessary jobs. It's unfair to immigrants, unfair to Canada. That's why it's a confidence measure. That's why it's a part of the budget, and we appreciate the support of the Liberals for that.
Okay, Minister, on this issue about why the immigration changes are coming through the budget bill rather than on their own, can you speak to that, please? Why would you take this approach?
Well, in Budget 2006, we outlined Advantage Canada, which is our blueprint for the economic future of Canada and how we become more competitive on the world stage. Obviously, there's a financial side to that with tax incentives and such, but there's also a very human side. Every business to succeed needs the right people. And we don't have enough of them in this country, and we're going to face a real shortfall in the next few years. So we need immigrants. Immigrants are going to be a key economic success factor for us. We're already competing for the talent internationally. We need it soon. We have to do something soon. It's a logical extension that for our economic success, we address immigration reform, because without it, we will not be able to compete successfully on the world stage, either for the talent or on the world markets.
But there's probably no portfolio in government that doesn't have some economic aspect to it, and you can make the same argument for anything. So again, does it not look more like you're sort of playing chicken politics again with the Liberals, daring them, you know, if you don't like this immigration bill, bring down the whole government, by putting it in the budget, as opposed to having a debate on immigration on its own, as has been the tradition in the country?
Well, we will be having the debate. The difference is, instead of being at the Immigration Committee, it'll be at the Finance Committee. But that debate is there to be had. All the different stakeholders who have concerns, and many of whom also support this legislation, will be able to come forward and speak. So there will be full debate on this, but let's face it, unlike the other ministries, immigration is going to be one of the critical elements of our economic success in the future. So it's only natural that it would be included in our economic blueprint of the country. Okay. Without people, there is no business.
But Olivia Chow, you know her, the NDP member of Parliament, has suggested just take that immigration section out of the budget bill so you can debate it and treat it separately. Would you entertain doing that?
Well, my concern there is that it's the same thing that was suggested with our tackling violent crime pieces. We set them aside separately, and it took over 2 years to get those pieces of legislation through the House. We can't afford to wait 2 years for this legislation to take effect. As I said earlier, if we wait just 4 years and do nothing and let things go on as they are under the existing law, within 4 years, the wait times will be 10 years for people applying to come to this country. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to their families. It's certainly not fair to the businesses that need them, and Canada will suffer as a result. So we simply can't afford to wait 2 years for that sort of thing to happen. And always the NDP, Ms. Chow, are threatening to call an election. If we do that, then this legislation won't get through, and Canada will suffer. So we need to get this through quickly to get moving on it, because it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of time to fix. We've got to get started.
I don't know if you saw the editorial in the National Post about this, but what the Post said was good policy from your government, but risky politics. You are, in some respects, leaving an opening for, in particular, the Liberals to come in and say, your government, your party doesn't care all that much about family reunification. It's worried only about the economy. And they think that tactically, anyway, this may be an opening for the Liberals. What's your view on that?
Well, you know, if you take a look at the Liberal record and what they did to immigrants, they brought in the $1,000 head tax on immigrants. They froze settlement funding, and when we tried to increase it significantly, they voted against it. They voted against us cutting the head tax. They voted against the Foreign Credentials Referrals Office. Everything we've done and are doing, virtually everything that we've done and doing to help immigrants, has been thwarted or attempted to be thwarted by the Liberals and the NDP. So you have to wonder, who is it that's trying to help immigrants, and who is it that's doing it for politics? Obviously, even the National Post article recognized we are trying to do the right thing. Maybe it's risky politics because people would take advantage of it for political reasons. We're trying to do the right thing for immigrants, period. Even if it's not politically popular, it's the right thing for Canada.
Minister, in our last minute, let me just ask you something about you, which you've spoken about publicly before, and I hope we'll take the opportunity to do so again. We remember in January of 2006 your government coming in for the first time, and then I guess it was about a month later, you started to wear those sunglasses in question period. You have Graves' disease. Could you tell us, first of all, what is that? And number two, how are you doing?
Well, thanks for asking, Steve. Graves' disease is a genetic thyroid condition. About 5% of the patients have it affect their eyes. It's been a challenge. I have a very high sensitivity to light. I was having some vision problems. Fortunately, over the summer, I had some very good surgeons who were able to fix that. So I'm making tremendous progress. The thyroid's under control, but I do as much work as I can to help the National Thyroid Foundation raise awareness of thyroid disease. It comes in many forms, can affect about 40% of the Canadian population over their lifetime, and unfortunately, half of those cases go undiagnosed. It's an easy test, it's a blood test, but a lot of people could be spared a lot of grief if they just get the test done.
Will you have to wear those sunglasses for the rest of your life, do you suppose?
I hope not. I had another surgery in January that helped considerably. We're making progress there. We're not quite there yet.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for coming on TVO tonight to talk about immigration, which we're going to continue to do in our debate on the other side of the studio, but we appreciate you getting us started tonight. Minister Diane Finley.
Thanks very much, Steve.